Okay, so when I asked this question on Twitter, I was surprised, and I probably used the wrong word, sports bubble. But I've been talking with a lot of my friends about this, and maybe the right word is sort of peak sports salary. But I also realize that there's going to be some different revenue streams. So be curious, you're a sports nut. What's your view on the TV contracts that the leagues are locked into, how they're charging subscribers, whether attendance across the leagues is going to go up, stable, go down, and then other experiences these folks can layer onto the fan experience?
Sure. So, I mean, the fundamental driver of sports TV contracts, which affects compensation to the athletes significantly, is that sports are really the only way to aggregate a live audience today. People don't want to watch sports tape delayed. So every other form of entertainment is moving to on demand. Sports is not. So you can accumulate a huge audience, either locally, regionally, or nationally, for the World Cup, for the Super Bowl, in a way that can't be done through any other format and through any other content. And that's incredibly valuable to advertisers. So that's what's lifting the value of these franchisees. And that's going to continue. So that trend is inexorable insofar as people still want to congregate and need to know the score, need to see it live, need to see it in real time. There's nothing else in the content genre that tends to do that. So that's a sort of a very impressive dynamic that people have figured out. I think the LA Dodgers sale really clarified that in people's thinking. Rupert Murdoch actually discovered this a long time ago. The other thing that's unique about sports is people are so addicted to what they do that they will change their behavior. So DirecTV, lots of people get DirecTV solely to watch the NFL on demand, the games they want to see. So one of the few things in life that's so emotional and so important to people that they will transform their behavior is sports, and that also creates value for the athletes, for the team owners, et cetera. So those are the two biggest drivers that are unique about sports as far as I can tell.
Right. But do you see that? So then, do you take the other view that actually salaries and the costs of attending games and the fan experiences at home are actually going to increase in price?
Well, I think the general costs of sports will increase. Whether it's subsidized by advertisers or paid directly by consumers is unclear, but the value of sports is increasing. The fan experience is a different dynamic, which is that as we improve the technology of consuming a sporting event via TV, 3D TV, HD TV, surround sound, all of these features, and the experience of also replays and custom angles and watching and following and tweeting, the benefits of going to the game versus staying at home may decrease. So there may be an attendance to audience shift that isn't necessarily in anyone's favor or disadvantage, but more people may decide to watch an NFL game at home as technology improves that experience. And that's one of the other dynamics going on right now is the different sports attribute revenue differently, of TV contracts versus attendance. And so there's a lot of energy going into how do we improve the fan experience at the stadium to be on par or better than watching from home. But that's a big battle with technology, and I suspect that gets lost over time, which is very difficult to compete with, Moore's Law and innovation and all the innovation of, the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley over time. But that probably does shift live attendance to be less exciting than watching, remotely.
And what about leagues in which there's disparity in high disparity in the markets? Do you see like a league? I guess the NFL has a lot of parity, but like a league like MLB, I don't see how teams in the middle of the country or in more rural areas can withstand.
Well, so I think the math of that is false. Like anybody who's studied the parity in the NFL versus the NBA versus the Major League Baseball, which all have different degrees of almost no salary cap and revenue sharing to effective socialism, the number of distinct Major League Baseball teams that have won a World Series in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is better than in the NFL. Regardless of what people talk about, Yankees, Red Sox, whoever's salary, it is more likely that a mid-market team in Major League Baseball will win the World Series than a mid-market team in the NFL or in the NBA. The NBA is actually the worst of all these franchises. The NBA is incredibly concentrated in who wins, and there's probably some other reasons why that's the case. Another unique element to the sort of the salary issue is that I actually think that it's fundamentally sort of unethical I believe, like, imagine if we said to one of our companies, you have a salary cap, like Facebook, you can only spend, this amount of money on engineers, and Google, you can only spend this amount of money on engineers. That would be crazy.
It happened, right?
Yeah, well, they tried. So, in any event, but I think that that's fundamentally unethical and unfair. And I think in sports, I don't see that as a sustainable model either. I think it's healthy in the short term, but long term, people should be able to compete. And then people will compete at the margin. So one of the things that happens in sports is coaches are generally not on a salary cap. So how do you compete if you have a salary cap on players? You spend all your money on coaches. Or one day coaches may be subject to a salary cap. Well, then you spend all your money on scouting. And the example that's current and relevant here is like the Oakland A's are notoriously a low budget team. Oakland's not a mass market. It's subject to even a secondary market because the San Francisco Giants are slightly more popular in a more attractive city. But Oakland, last time I looked, was either the first or second best team in baseball. They do incredibly well. They thrive by being innovative. And I think sometimes putting design constraints and real constraints on you, desperation breeding innovation is a good thing. So I think a lot of the franchise owners that whine just aren't innovating.